Imagine locking a priceless diary in a heavy safe, only to realize the door is made entirely of clear glass.
So how secure is your data really? Because if everyone can just peek in and see exactly what's inside, that safe isn't doing its job at all. By the end of this explainer, you are going to understand the core concepts of network security, the exact tools we use to build digital defenses, and the risk management frameworks that major organizations rely on to stay safe. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The core of security, protecting the digital vault.
Before we even touch on the complex software, we've got to understand the absolute foundation of data protection. We call it the CIA triad. Honestly, every single piece of security architecture you'll ever encounter is built around this exact model. It's the framework ensuring information is totally protected, but also readily available to authorized users.
Let's make this a bit easier with an example. Think back to that personal diary we just talked about. The three pillars of the CIA triad are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is like storing that diary in a locked, opaque safe. We keep it away from bad actors through technical means like encryption. Next is integrity, which is like placing a tamper-proof seal right on the diary's cover. If someone alters your data, you're going to know immediately. In tech, we use hashing and digital signatures to guarantee a file hasn't been changed even a single bit. And finally, availability. You need to actually write in the diary, right? Keeping the safe close by for easy access represents availability. There is literally zero point in having perfectly secure data if authorized users can't access it when they need it. To put that in perspective, imagine a doctor who can't pull up a patient's chart during an emergency because the system is locked down way too tight. In that case, the security has completely failed its purpose.
Section 2. Privacy versus security, knowing the difference.
Now, this is a super common area of confusion, so let's clear it up right now. Information security is not the exact same thing as information privacy. Think of information security as a massive bouncer at a highly exclusive club. Its entire job is to guard the perimeter, keep unwanted intruders out, and protect the assets inside using firewalls and encryption. Information privacy, on the other hand, well, that's the VIP list the bouncer holds in his hand. It dictates exactly who gets into the VIP room, what they're allowed to see, and how their personal information is managed. Basically, security protects the data, while privacy controls the rights to that data.
Section 3. Recognizing cyber threats. What are we protecting against?
So what exactly is our digital bouncer protecting us against? Well, wait, this is super important. Just take a look at this number, 75%. Nearly 75% of users are at risk for compromise just because of weak password practices. To put that into perspective, almost 80% of all data breaches are caused by human error and poor password management. Yep, the human element is almost always the weakest link in your entire security chain.
So, let's break these threats down and categorize them into three main buckets. First up, malware. These are your viruses, worms, and trojans. This is malicious software actively attacking your technical systems and files. But contrast that with social engineering, like those sketchy phishing emails you get. Social engineering doesn't actually attack the computer, it attacks the human. It manipulates you into handing over your password voluntarily. Finally, we have insider threats. These are your rogue employees or contractors. They already have the VIP pass, which makes them incredibly dangerous, because they just bypass traditional external security measures entirely.
Section 4. Building your defenses, the tools of the trade.
Now that we completely understand what we're fighting against, let's look at the basic defenses. The most foundational defense happens in exactly how we transmit data across the web. Take a look at HTTP versus HTTPS. HTTP sends your data in plain text, meaning if an attacker intercepts it, they can read absolutely everything perfectly. But HTTPS adds that magical S for secure. It creates an encrypted tunnel using protocols like SSL or TLS. If an attacker intercepts HTTPS traffic, all they see is completely scrambled, unreadable code.
And building on that encryption, organizations use strict best practices. The absolute crucial point here is the zero trust model. The old way of thinking was, hey, let's just trust everyone inside the network. Zero trust flips that and says, never trust, always verify every single user and device, constantly. We pair this with defense in depth. This means if one layer, like an external firewall, somehow fails, we have other specialized layers like internal network segmentation and strict permissions waiting right behind it. It's literally like having a moat, then a giant castle wall, and then a reinforced vault inside that. We also add multi-factor authentication, or MFA, to stop those password attacks we just talked about. And importantly, we use patch management. That's the rigorous, ongoing process of testing and deploying software updates to close known vulnerabilities before hackers can even exploit them.
Now you might be asking, okay, this sounds totally great in theory, but how do we actually track these threats in real time? How on earth do we know if a hacker is trying to break in right this second?
The reason we can see them happening is through an IDPS, an intrusion detection and prevention system. Think of this as your active security guards and an automated lockdown system all rolled into one. It actively monitors network traffic 24/7. It looks for known threat signatures, kind of like a digital fingerprint of a virus, and it also watches out for any abnormal behaviors. If it spots something malicious, it doesn't just record it and wait, it actively blocks the security breach on the spot, completely cutting the attacker off from your network.
Section 5. Risk Management Strategies. Planning for the worst at scale. All right, let's zoom out to the organizational level for a minute. To manage risks at scale, massive businesses don't just guess, they use established playbooks. And the ultimate playbook is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. It breaks down into 5 continuous steps. Identify what assets you actually have. Protect those assets. Detect when something goes wrong. Respond to the incident immediately. And recover your data and operations so you can get back to normal. This isn't just a simple checklist you do once and forget about. It's a comprehensive, ongoing loop that organizations run constantly to adapt to brand new threats.
But hold on, how do you actually identify and measure those risks in step 1? Well, you assess them in 2 very specific ways: qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative assessment is highly subjective. You're using expert opinions to label a risk as simply high, medium, or low. It's much faster and uses things like interviews or a SWOT analysis to get broad understanding of the landscape. Quantitative assessment, on the other hand, is pure math. You use rigorous statistical methods to assign a measurable financial impact, an exact dollar cost to a risk, using mathematical tools like decision trees and expected monetary value calculations. You really need both the descriptive and the financial perspectives to see the full picture.
Section 6. Securing the future. Mitigating cyber risk.
Now, let's connect all of this to real-life decisions. When a project manager faces a recognized threat, they have a few specific actions they can take. You can accept the risk. If the impact is so incredibly small, it barely matters. You can avoid it entirely by changing your project plans altogether. You can control it by actively minimizing the impact through monitoring. You can transfer the risk, for example, shifting your data hosting to a super secure third-party vendor so they absorb that risk for you. Or you can simply watch and consistently monitor the risk for any changes. The point is, every single threat requires a deliberate, specific action plan to keep operations running smoothly.
Before we wrap up, let's quickly summarize the key points. We've covered the CIA triad, the core difference between privacy and security, the defensive tools we use like IDPS and HTTPS, and how major organizations manage their risks. But your absolutely biggest takeaway today should be this: security is an ongoing process, not a final destination. Technology changes constantly, and human behavior changes right along with it. Fostering a really strong human security culture alongside continuous monitoring are the true keys to long-term digital trust. Which brings us right back to our opening thought. Are your digital assets truly secured in a vault, or just a glass safe waiting to shatter? The tools and frameworks are absolutely out there, but it takes constant vigilance to apply them properly. In our next explainer, we're going to dive even deeper into exactly how hackers use social engineering to bypass your very best defenses. So make sure to check that out to keep your vault totally secure.